Hello and welcome to Gorilla and the Geek, the podcast for sweaty nerds by sweaty nerds. My name is Kyle from Geeks Weekly, and I'm joined as always by my good pal John the Ginger Gorilla. John, how you doing today on this pretty fine Saturday afternoon?
It's beautiful outside. Went out earlier to, go to my parents' house to work out, where my little gym basement is. Basement gym, whatever, gym basement, same thing, I guess. But I got to go outside and it was beautiful out. Cause it got cold where we were for like a day or two, and now it's back to being like a good temperature because it's like warm, but not too warm. Right in that nice even below. Um, but doing well. A lot of nerd content out. Getting more new nerd news out. So very exciting here. Very exciting.
So for those of you who have obviously clicked on this, you've seen the title. We are here to talk about not just the finale, but the season as a whole of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you haven't been listening to these podcasts so far, we do get into full spoilers. If you don't want any spoilers and you want to watch a review, you got to find something else. I'm sorry. Or go watch the show, then come back and listen to our thoughts. If you want to know whether we recommend it or not, I'll speak for both myself and John. If you're a fan of the MCU stuff, give the show a watch. If you don't have any previous Marvel knowledge, don't watch it.
Yeah.
You have to be into the universe to get into this. There's a lot of stuff that's referenced and called back to. Just if you're a fan of this stuff, check it out. And with that, John, why don't we jump right into it?
Well,
So yesterday was the season one finale with episode six. This might be the series finale. We're not entirely sure right now. It's kind of up in the air. A lot of people are speculating. And what I wanted to ask you first, John, before we get into the episode itself. I'm not sure if we talked about this with WandaVision, but I do want to have this discussion with you directly because I have this weird thought in my head about this online fandom in terms of how we're perceiving shows nowadays.
mm-hmm.
And the big question I have right now is how much for you does the finale of a season or a series impact your viewpoint of it, especially in this type of scenario where it's a shorter season? What does it do for you?
Um, that's a tough question. Mostly for the fact that it really depends on my mindset going into this series season or series finale, right? If I'm expecting something big and it doesn't pay off, then I could be disappointed, and I think I could let that affect my mentality for the rest of the show. As I've probably alluded to on this podcast before, Game of Thrones series finale was absolutely horrible, as a lot of fans would agree. The writers just kind of gave up and just made horrible choices for that whole last season. And it ruined the show, right? I won't go back and watch Game of Thrones, even though I want to, because I know the payoff isn't there. If it has a payoff, even if it's a payoff that I'm not necessarily expecting, or like this super amazing payoff, as long as it pays off and it wraps up well, then I'm usually good to go. Like I'm like, yeah, cool, I enjoyed that. For instance, when we talked about WandaVision, there was a lot of theories being thrown around beforehand. So maybe some hype it didn't live up to, but I thought it was a nice closing. It wrapped everything up well and it set things up for the future nicely. So I was content, and I recently rewatched WandaVision with my girlfriend. And I was like, hey, this is good as a second watch too, even knowing that the ending, probably a little better knowing that the ending is what it is and how it comes out. Actually probably made it a little better because you're not anticipating this person or that person or this amazing thing or that amazing thing. So after the WandaVision for this show, I came into it neutral, which I'm going to try to do for the rest of them, even though Loki I'm super duper excited for. So it's going to be hard to be neutral, but I was excited because I thought they were going to, like, once again, as I've said time and time again, Marvel hits, and until they don't hit, that's when I need to start worrying. But right now, I don't really have time to wear, or I really, I can't worry about if they're going to be bad because they haven't produced anything bad. In my opinion, like there are things that haven't necessarily been like home runs, but I wouldn't say anything is like a clunker or necessarily bad in my opinion. Everything's been entertaining. And this show I think hit that mark too, even though, and we'll get into it, the series finale, which I mean some people thought was amazing, but I thought it was good and it was solid, but I wouldn't say it's like, man, they really hit the nail on the head with that series finale.
So for me, I think that it it really depends on the show.
Yeah.
For me, something like if I'm watching Friends, that season finale, or series finale even, or the finale
Like
of say The
like
Office,
series finale.
maybe. You could even throw in, this is going to be weird, but like a Dexter's Lab,
Mm.
something where it's an episodic show in that these episodes don't necessarily have a through line of the story.
Mm-hmm.
With I almost said Captain America and the Winter Soldier, which it wound up being at the end. With Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I heard someone say this on Twitter yesterday, and I agree with them. It kind of felt like a really long movie.
Yeah.
Everything kind of bled into the next episode. WandaVision, it didn't. WandaVision, you could kind of watch, especially the first half of the season, each episode as its own thing.
Yeah.
This show, everything felt like it was bleeding into each other. So it felt like this finale for me was the culmination of the story.
Mm.
And going into it, I had voiced a little bit of apprehension to the boys about how I felt as though some stuff would have been resolved prior to that episode. Here are things we had to resolve. We knew that we were going to see Sam in the cap suit, so we still had to get that, and we had to get him being Captain America. That's a moment that they had to pay off. They just had to.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to find out who the power broker was, which was the worst kept secret in television this year. We needed to get the resolution to Bucky's story. We needed to see the U.S. agent have his story culminate, which we'll get into later.
I
I was going
like
to say
our
be the
name
bad
better
guy.
though. I mean, obviously they wouldn't be able
Kirkland
to use
Cap.
it, but Kirkland Cap it man,
It just has
it
that
hits
nice
it sits
alliteration.
so yeah, it hits so much better. But obviously,
Continuity.
trademarking, yeah.
Yeah, trademarking too. And the fifth one, oh yes, the most forgettable of them all, unfortunately, the Flag Smasher story resolving. So that's five things to do in the season finale of the show that we knew was going to be at most an hour. KG, who some of you might know from various podcasts John and I've done with him, he timed it out. It was under 50 minutes, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was like 40 something. Yeah. And
Wow.
obviously, Disney with their credits, which I mean, shout out Disney giving everybody and their mother a credit, but um stop, tricking us with the time length and
What was it? 12
just
minutes
kidding.
of credits? Was that it?
I think every episode so far, even with WandaVision, has been like 12 minutes. Yeah. The
That's
credits are the
wild.
credits are insanely long.
Which I mean,
Um
again, it's cool that they're giving that many people jobs. Number
yeah.
one, but number two, it is kind of like, oh, well, we get this episode. It's almost an hour. No, we don't. It's basically 45 minutes. So I had a feeling, which is something you kind of alluded to, that this episode could possibly be underwhelming. You and I had talked about the episode after we both seen it. We haven't really spoken in depth
Depth,
about
yeah.
this to try and keep it for the pod, but we both were kind of like, we knew it wasn't going to be great,
Yeah.
so it wasn't like it didn't do to me what say Batman v Superman did to me, where
Mm.
I'm really excited for this thing,
And then you're left
and
buzzing
then
after.
yeah,
And yeah.
or even a movie like Glass. Glass was probably a top three most anticipated movie of 2019 for me. And afterwards, John can attest, I was kind of like, oh man.
Oh, you mean when we
Ooh.
felt like when we were driving home, we felt like piles of poop sitting in a car because the movie was just like
It's frustrating, you know? Um, but with this in particular, again, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't as great as it maybe could have been. And I think that's
Yeah,
where we both are. Is that correct? Is that where you were?
100%. And I mean, there's a lot they could have done. I mean, obviously we're not showrunners or script
And
writers.
we're not going to start off with negatives. We don't want to
No,
be negative
because
Nancy's off rip.
there's a lot of positives, and like I said earlier on, Marvel still hits. Like, this wasn't a failure in any case. I really enjoyed this show. I wish there was more. Like, I want more of them together doing. It doesn't even have to have a crazy story arc. If we just had like an episodic show where they take on one bad guy after another bad guy, I don't even think I'd be that mad. Like a buddy cop type show, that would be fun.
That's kind of what I thought the show was going to be at first.
Yeah, and hopefully there's more seasons where we get something like that. Now, obviously, it's harder to do because, well, maybe not because, I mean, he is Cap. Spoiler alert: he's Captain America now. Like, he's Cap, so maybe they don't want to use such a pivotal character in just a buddy cop role. So maybe we won't get something like that. But I think it would be a lot of fun, especially with the relationship they built up between Sam and Bucky. I think it could be a lot of fun having like a buddy cop, like, I'm gonna take on this little guy, I'm gonna take down that guy, type of thing. In between like the big bad moments, because like they're heroes, so like they gotta do everyday heroing in between their big heroing moments. So you have big bads, which planet ending, time altering, taking over a country, but you also have to do with your daily your daily bads, where robbing a bank or trying to poison a water supply, things like that.
Well, in the finale of the season, they ask Captain America, which is his name now, they say, "Can you help us out with this last guy?" And he said, "Always." So they do always have to be working out here.
Yeah.
And with that, John, if you don't mind, I'd like to start us off on our positives portion of the pod.
Yes, sir.
And why don't we just continue with the conversation we were just having? Sam Wilson and his progression to becoming Captain America. To me, this is the best thing that the show had to offer, in my opinion. I thought that I've mentioned it a couple times in the pod. Avengers Endgame left Sam Wilson with the shield, and I was very emotional watching that because I was like, wow, this guy's hero just kind of gave him the mantle. But I'd never really thought about what it would be like to see him be Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
And this show, by the end of it, proved to me that we needed to see the story of him becoming that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that this would have worked as well if we had just come into a movie and he's using the shield. You could have told a story like that, but I kind of really enjoy the tough conversations even that the show had with him becoming Captain America, with the racial implications. And we'll get into that as another positive later with a specific character who I'm sure you have a positive for as well. But I just think that showing him and his character for who he is and why he is right to be Captain America was a really big positive for me. Do you have anything else to say on that, or do you want to move on to the next one?
No, I 100% agree, and I think it's needed. It was needed, and I'm glad I'm glad that Marvel stepped into the show universe because of the fact that this as a movie, I think it would have felt so different. Having it as a show, you were able to have these conversations where you didn't necessarily have to like cram it into literally one conversation. It was like kind of strung out, multiple conversations. There was a build up with like the bank scene at the beginning of the series, and then they alluded to different things along the way. And I think if you just went and if you skipped this and you were like, he was given the shield and now he feels like Cap, you would have missed out on such a good character arc that we were able to get. So I felt like this was super fulfilling in that part, because now I'm emotionally invested in Sam, where I wasn't necessarily invested in Falcon. Now I'm invested in Cap, and also I really like the wings with the shield. I think it's so much fun because he could do so many. He's a different Cap, He's not a super soldier Cap. He's his own Cap, and I like that a lot. Like, because it's not gonna feel like you're stepping on toes of the past, or it's not gonna feel too much the same. Which then I don't think it will get stale, because the fight choreography could be different and everything. Like the fact like when he throws the shield out the window and then like shoots out and catches it, like it was awesome. Like I just like that whole the different design and the feel to it. So that was really exciting, and like I said, they crushed it on the character arc.
I agree, 100%. Do you have another one you would like to add before I get to my next one? Another positive?
Um, about him, or you mean something else?
Something else in the show.
Um, what else? I mean, I found a lot positive. I don't even just.
If
You
you don't
go to
have
your
one, I'll
next.
go.
Go to your next one, and I'll come back.
So my next one is the show focusing on some logistical aspects of the blip.
Hmm.
In WandaVision, we get to see people coming back from the blip and the chaos that caused the day of. But in this show, we discussed portions of it that I'd never thought about. What the world would be like if half the population just emerged in front of us. What if I'm living in a new house within the past 5 years and someone else just winds up in my bed while I'm sleeping? What do we do? Whose room is this now? Whose house does it belong to?
Yeah,
Whose bank account is still there? What if someone needs money? What if their job was taken during this time? Uh, the fact that makes them like kind of refugees. I just thought that that was a really interesting aspect to this world
hmm
that I don't know that I feel like we could have gotten it in, like, let's say this was a Captain America movie or the Falcon and the Winter Soldier movie, but I just, as the story of the show goes, I thought that that was a really cool avenue to explore a little bit.
I agree. I think that is one thing that the show gives us over than what a movie might. The world building aspect, you could get into more detail with a show, because you have more time than you would with a movie. So like this series, this one season series, whatever it um, is longer than what a movie would be, even with the all the credits. Take that time out, and it's still probably longer. Um, so with that, you could dig a little deeper and show these little things that you might not see. Like the fact that just like someone trying to get a loan to buy a house maybe that they don't have anymore, and they're like, well, what have you been making money the last so many years, like to prove to the bank that you've been making money? It's like, well, I didn't exist, like. And then it has to be awkward for people to be like, I didn't exist, because that's almost like an existential thing. Like, you got to think about the mentality of these people, and all this comes into this show where I didn't necessarily think about that. Like, oh, people were gone, now they're back. That was my thought before this. And with WandaVision and this, it makes you really think, and it develops that world and the problems and these small, minute problems, which then are going to grow into bigger problems that these heroes need to fix and fight for. And it's going to create characters like Carly, who will then um have a reason to be evil, you know? Um and yeah, so I the world development in it was truly, once again, amazing. It's the small details that I think Marvel is really good at getting at, where, other unbeknownst comic like
I won't take any slander on here, John. Get out of here with this. Next one that I had was,
actually, I got a good one right now.
oh, okay, go ahead.
We got another good villain. I think it was a relatable villain. I
In
mean,
who?
Carly. Sorry.
So we're gonna disagree on this. So I'm
Oh,
gonna let you go off. Go off,
interesting.
King.
Well, I just think it was relatable. Like, she was fighting for a cause that made sense. Now, the place that you could argue against, which you might, is like, what was her background before this? Well, how did all of a sudden she become a vigilante? How did she get the super serum? All these things that they didn't really tell us. But um, I enjoyed the fact that it was another relatable cause. Almost to like a Killmonger, and obviously they're different in their what they stand for, and how one actually has cultural value in real life, where Carly, obviously there was no blip, so we don't really have this refugee problem. But it's very understandable how she's fighting for these people who've lost their homes and feel like they don't have anywhere to go, and so on and so forth. And I just thought the idea of this whole flag smasher thing and this movement was a good idea, especially with the fact that they're using modern technology of like social media to get the people behind them. It was very smart that, like, hey, start a movement, and then the superheroes not only have to fight us, but they also have to fight against this movement, not just a person.
Uh, I will move on to the next one because that is in my negatives, and I will discuss that when we get there. So, my next one, and this was another big one for me. I thought Isaiah Bradley's story being unveiled was really cool.
Yeah.
I did not know who Isaiah Bradley was prior to this show, and I just thought it was a really cool aspect, and I think it added to Sam's character arc.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's like a hot take or a really profound thing to say. I just think that it was. I don't think you can find any one person who is not a racist who did not appreciate Isaiah Bradley's story.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. I thought that delving into some of the racial implications, especially of the time that Isaiah Bradley was alive in particular, was just kind of it works when your title character for this kind of for this franchise, and then by the end for the franchise of Captain America, and having things be based in time of war and time of pre-civil rights movement. I do think that his character's story was really relevant. It's relevant to this day, and I do think that it served its purpose and it made for a really good portion of the finale, which as a whole I wasn't crazy about, but his moment in the finale I thought was really well done.
It gave you that emotional like release, I guess you could say, of just having some feels storing it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think a lot gave me the feels during that finale episode, but that moment was like, man, like I felt for it, like, hey, finally. Especially because like, and I think it plays to Sam Wilson's character a little, like, even more with it because of the fact that like he, I mean, he could have been like just forgot and not actually done anything. I mean, obviously, but that's not who he is. So he stepped up and wanted to make sure this guy's story was told for the culture and for uh future generations to understand, like, hey, this happened, and he was here and he worked hard. He didn't get erased from the world because the U.S. government kind of erased the guy.
Yeah, it's interesting how the blip erased people. But I have a feeling that this guy was still around for those 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, the fact that he wasn't brought up as a resource for that type of peril that the world was in, it's just like, wow,
Yeah.
that's terrible. And that kind of concludes my positives. I have two that are like halfway positives. I can say them now. I loved the way that Bucky started the season.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say his whole story was a positive for me, but the way he started off was really great in my opinion. And I liked half of what happened with John Walker's character. Again, the way it ended didn't really
Bro, I
satisfy
wouldn't even
me.
say half. I
But
would
yes.
say probably 80%, maybe even
Okay, we can go
90,
with 80%. Yeah,
because it wasn't until I mean, I don't know if we're jumping right into negatives now.
we can jump into it. Yeah,
All right, well, let's start with him then. Like,
yeah, that's a pretty big one. Pretty
yeah,
big one.
because like, bro, he's not a like they turned him. So okay, he started out as like a hopeful, a Cap, like some guy who wanted to uh pick up the
John,
mantle.
we
He was a good
started
guy.
off with him being nervous in a locker room
Yeah,
talking to his girlfriend about how he wanted to live up to it.
yeah, relatable, very
Yes.
relatable. And then it's understandable that through maybe like PTSD, as he alluded to, and that he would turn like he's not capped. A Cap, like Cap decided like I don't always could play by like the government and what they want me to do. That's role of Cap. Like I am the symbol, but I am also a symbol for good and what's good for America.
And with the PTSD angle, Captain America was Captain America during his time of war.
Yeah,
John Walker was not Captain America during war. He
yeah.
was John Walker. Very
Mhm.
different. But go on.
And then so then it started him turning, heel, which I was like reasonably makes sense. That's
He
fine.
loved it.
I enjoy. Yeah, he's a good heel. Kirkland Cap. He has the look of like just a evil guy, a knockoff evil. And I was like, yeah. And then he takes the super serum, like even better. Now he's got that strength to back everything. The shield, yeah. There was so much of like, hey, he's bad. And then this last episode where he was still kind of bad. Like you see him like crafting the shield, and you're like, oh, he's gonna go like full knockoff, like
That was
bad.
ominous.
Yeah, and then he comes and he's fighting, and then he tries. Then he tries to be good and is good.
He's cracking jokes with
Yeah.
Bucky about Abe
Now,
Lincoln.
now here, I thought of something, right? I thought of one thing. Although it didn't work in this last episode of him being good and just feeling like it came out of nowhere. What if that's who his character is, right? What if because of the super serum, he has all this angst and he does bad things, but he also fights with, well, I want to be good, and he'll sprinkle in good things there, but most of the time he's doing bad things. Like, I feel, because like I think that's kind of how he was in the comics. Like I think he wasn't necessarily all evil, but he wasn't good either. You know, I think he tried to do good, but would do bad in doing good. You know, like I want, let's say, I want to save this country, but I might accidentally kill civilians along the way, like things like that, or kill people that don't like. Almost kind of like, Carly, how she had this good idea, but she didn't care who got in the way, and she'd like kill him, right? I think he could be that type of evil. So maybe he tried to save these people, and obviously it didn't hit. Like it was weird when he was cracking Abe Lincoln jokes.
John, he decapitated someone who was unarmed with a
Hey,
shield.
we don't know if it was decapitation. Decapitation means you cut off their head. He may have just
I
smashed
mean,
the head into smithereens.
yeah,
There's,
there were.
I want to be clear.
You mentioned
Okay.
it. You mentioned this. You said there were chunks in the
There's
blood
chunks.
on the shield.
There's chunks. Yeah, there's brain matter on the shield.
Did you see the frame? It might be on one of our thumbnails. It might not be, of him doing the smash. That's not who you can't prop him as a good guy by the end of the show. That's just weird.
It felt gross. And then, I mean, and obviously we talked about a little bit about this yesterday. And then he's in the courthouse with the lady who.
Oh, and he's like, look at my black suit. Like
Oh,
what?
and it's almost lovable in a goofy way again. But I don't want to like. That's not what I want his character to be now. What did you do? You just made him do something so despicable. Probably one of the most gruesome acts in all of.
I don't know about one of. I think it might have been the most gruesome in all of
I know.
MCU.
I said one of because I'm like, maybe there was something that I'm forgetting. But like, when have we seen blood like that in a Marvel product? I don't think we have.
There was so much care and attention placed in that scene. We praised it on the pod.
I loved it. It gave that grittiness.
I thought it was a defining moment for the show, and that episode is when I was like, "Wait, hold on. This might not be a good show. This might be like a phenomenal one, like something like a classic. This might be the first superhero show that's like live action, at least, that is like a moment in time type of thing." And then they just went halfway with it.
They like cut it off at the legs, like.
It's so weird. I mean, even at the end of episode 5, when he's in that post-credit scene, which you were talking about with him building the shield, it didn't feel like, oh, is this guy good or bad in this moment? It felt like, no, the real big bad's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's him versus Sam. This is going to be the battle. That's what I thought. Was that what you thought?
Yeah, I thought that and I thought like it might be a 3-way battle where maybe he also wants to stop Carly because he wants to be Cap, but he also is like, that's my shield, like I want that. So maybe like a 3-way fight that could have been super epic, and it just nothing was like that.
See, here's the weird thing about this. I had mentioned earlier the worst kept secret in television this year was Sharon Carter being the power broker, right? It felt like those two things switched. The most obvious thing in the world for the show was in terms of what made the most sense, was to have John Walker be the villain at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, that's what it seemed like. That's what it should have been. That's where it was going. That's what people were excited for. People were comparing him to Homelander from The Boys, John. And that's a beloved character as a villain, of course. And with Sharon, it was like, well, I mean, I guess logically it makes sense for her to be the power broker, but that's not any fun.
Yeah.
So subvert our expectations with that, make that like a twisty thing, and not this where it's like, it's almost as if Darth Vader in episode 3. Let's say episodes 5, 6, 7. No, 4, 5, 6 were never a thing. Let's say it started off 1, 2, 3. It's almost as if in episode 3, instead of Anakin jumping onto Obi-Wan, who clearly had the high ground, Anakin, I mean, come on. You deserved what you got, my guy. But instead he went, nope.
You're right.
I'm gonna go help Yoda. Never mind. And it's like, what? Wait, whoa! This all-time villain was
He
in front
killed
of us.
children, and now you want him to? Now he's helping Yoda. That's exactly.
Yeah.
That's such a good. Oh my god, that came together so well.
It's one of those things where it's like, but you had us at this moment where we could have had this. An all-time classic villain is really hard to do. It is, to me, in superhero lore, in the live-action superhero lore, there's only been a couple. Outside of my biases, here are the ones we have. We have Joker from The Dark Knight. I would argue Thanos at this point is a classic all-timer.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it's kind of like, if we're talking classics, that's kind of it. Outside of maybe Jack Nicholson's Joker, that's 2 Jokers in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think John Walker could have been that. He was going there. It was interesting. It was cool. There was depth to him. There was layers. At the end of episode 5, he's saying, "You made me like this," to the government. He's a complex character. There's motivation there. There's fear now because he's more powerful than the heroes. And then they don't do it.
Yeah.
And it just felt strange. And it's not like he was bad in this episode. I mean, Wyatt Russell is a really good actor, so it was done well performance-wise, and he wasn't written poorly in a vacuum. But I think in terms of a payoff to a story, it felt like instead of hitting the bullseye, they shot at a different board.
Now, here's my question to you. Do you think all's lost with the character? Like,
No.
if they writers come out, which, I mean, obviously, I don't think they will, but if they come out and be like, hey, to be honest, yeah, we kind of did mess up. You're right. Because I don't know how public feels about this. Because I kind of stay away from all the reviews and stuff before this conversation, so it's not tainted by other people's opinions. So I don't know how everyone else feels besides the little group that we have. So if they come out and they're like, hey, like, okay, he needs to be bad, but we were going for that he's going to always have an internal struggle of trying to be good and bad at the same time because he wants that Cap mantle, but he'll do anything and hurt anyone to get that or be seen as that. And I think that could be a very intriguing evil character, where is this guy who wants to be seen as like a Cap figure, now U.S. agent, which name more could be better. And he wants to be this Cap figure, like a savior for America, but he takes it too far every time and does a little more bad than any good that will come out of it. I think that could be a very intriguing character, but you need to not have him almost try to have these scenes where you're trying to make him lovable, or like silly or goofy. I don't think goofy silly fits into that character and who he is. Especially because the fact that I think when someone takes a super serum like that, you could kind of ease away from the silly and goofy within that person. Just say super serum doesn't really give you silly and goofy anymore. All right. Sorry, recording cut off. We just finished talking about Walker and how don't make him super silly and whatnot. And just, don't ruin a character next time. But Kyle does like doing one thing, and it's rip apart Gingers. He does it in his free time with me. So here he goes and tells you why he doesn't like Carly.
You know what stinks? I'll let the listeners know. I had given an entire reasoning. I thought I did a pretty decent soliloquy about the Flag Smashers, but I'm going to try it again. Here we go. So, the Flag Smashers in general. Let's talk about villains within the MCU. I think that this show presents itself the same issue that a lot of the MCU movies have had struggle with. Previously in the MCU, we've had maybe two like classic great villains. You'd argue probably Loki, who is now kind of like a tweener anti-hero at this point, maybe kind of role. And then you have Thanos. You can maybe say the Vulture, but I don't know if he's like a classic. But
Yeah.
Thanos is. Outside of them, it's kind of like they're all okay. Nothing really to write home about. Although I would argue for Killmonger, I think Killmonger is an all-time movie villain in general. That's just my taste.
I think his plight and what he was standing for was very relatable to a lot of people.
Yes,
So it hit home.
and I think Michael B. Jordan is excellent in that role. I wouldn't mind him returning, to be honest.
Yeah.
We have friends who didn't like him in that movie, which I just don't understand personally. But I digress. Now, in this show, I think two villains' bags were fumbled. I think they fumbled the bag with John Walker, as we talked about, possibly becoming the big bad at the end of the season. And I think the Flag Smashers, having an interesting premise, were not executed well enough. So, the Flag Smashers, what their plight was wanting a world without borders. But here's my confusion. They say that they want the world how it was during the blip. Do you want half the population to be dead again? Do you want, what is it that you are trying to accomplish aside from a world without borders? What does that really mean?
Yeah.
What is the help you want to enlist for people, if that's what you're trying to do?
So my thing is, I can't argue that where it was confusing, because they didn't necessarily have, maybe they could have like a monologue of saying like this is how it was, and maybe they could have showed flashbacks or whatever. But maybe it was one of those things where the world was, and like this is the thing, I don't want to have to think of maybe this is what they meant. But maybe like when there was less people, borders were open, so people were able to freely travel within those 5 years because there's less people, so it was easier to maintain.
Question. Do you think it would have benefited the show for them to show us that? Not even just to have a soliloquy or dialogue.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe to show us some scenes.
Yeah, like having one of those characters be able to freely travel. Maybe Carly was freely traveling, but that wasn't it, and that's not what was shown. So I can't argue against that. So go ahead, go back to ripping.
So let's talk about Carly for a second here, John. Carly is a character who, in I believe the last podcast that we recorded on the show, was someone who I thought had immense potential as like an all-time Marvel villain. I thought that her plight, again with the Flag Smashers plan, was interesting enough and maybe well-meaning enough that it would carry her to being this really interesting, somewhat relatable villain. She had that conversation with Sam about at what price is freedom too, or what cost is too high for the type of freedom she was looking for, with lives being at stake. But I don't think that they executed on it well enough at all. I think within the next 2 episodes, they should have explored her character more, made her more sympathetic, and maybe had her, again, I don't want to do this thing where I'm like, well, the writer should have done this. This is how I would have done it, because I'm not a Hollywood screenwriter. These guys are great at their job, and that's why they get hired by freaking Disney. But I just think that the opportunity was there for her to be a really great and sympathetic character. We had talked about on the pod, I'm pretty sure, about her possibly redeeming herself by the end of the show. Yeah. And I said, maybe she dies at the end, trying to save the world. Now, John, here's my question to you. Because I didn't feel anything when she died. I didn't care. I thought I would before the 5th episode. I was like, oh, maybe this will be like a really emotional hitting point for me with the season finale. Did you care when she died?
No, I mean, and that whole scene was almost lackluster because that was the scene we found out the thing we already knew.
So Carly, freaking GSP died, and we were both kind of like, oh.
I was more upset at that. I think that GSP died.
Me too.
So, yeah, that goes and shows. So, I mean, yeah, and by the way,
I don't want to make you defend. If you liked her, that's fine. I just wanted to know if you felt something when she died.
Here's my thing.
I don't want to like poke holes or whatever.
I will truly agree that they fumbled the bag again. My positive was I liked the plot, like her goal. I liked that idea that the way they develop, um, the evil person for this show. I enjoyed that because it once again was relatable. It's like it's understandable why she's like this. Just like in WandaVision, even though it's not necessarily understandable why Agnes, I guess just because she was power hungry, but it's understandable why Wanda was doing this. Because there's an argument that Wanda was the big bad. Like, so to a certain perspective, she was. So it was understandable, and I like that they're able to do this. And by they, I mean Marvel. Their big bads a lot of times are. It's like it makes sense why this person's upset and doing this thing, or has turned to this or turned to that. So that was my positive on it. But I do agree. At the end, it was just like, oh, I guess we're not seeing her anymore. All right.
What's funny? There's a lot of for those out there who are listening, there's a lot of harumphs by John in this pod. It's kind of like, you know.
That's how I felt a lot of this episode. It was a lot of just like, okay. You know, I guess there goes that little plot point that I wanted to enjoy. I mean, I guess, thank you, Marvel. You were doing so well until this point.
But with that, here's a negative that I had that isn't like terrible, but it isn't. I thought it was going to be something really, really big. And maybe I was wrong for thinking that. Bucky at the beginning of the season is set up to have a really hard conversation with his friend.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull up the friend's name real quick. It was it Yuri?
I don't know. That's a good question.
It might have, yeah, I think it was Yuri. Played by Ken. Ooh, I'm gonna butcher his last name, so I'm not gonna say it. Ken T. Let's call him Ken
T.
Capital T. He killed his son. I thought this was gonna be a really big conversation. I thought there was gonna be some sort of like emotional revelation there. And to me, it kind of felt like it was kind of sped up. Like it happened. The scene was under 2 minutes long, I'm pretty sure, and they moved on. And they showed him kind of just looking at his friend, enjoying tea by himself. It was kind of sad to me. Did you feel that way, John? Because Sean, who we've made podcasts with before, has told me that it worked for him. Did it work for you?
No. I mean, I agree. It was rushed. There was this, once again, it was a moment where it was like, I wanted more from this, especially like maybe he had to then go also talk and explain himself to the girl that he was interested in earlier on.
We kind of ditched in the first episode.
Yeah. There's like so much that they just kind of were like, we have to hurry up. My thing is, I wonder if they blew too much of their budget on something, because there's no reason why this was a 6-episode show. Give me 8 episodes. Give me 2 more episodes, or maybe you tie up part here, you tie up part there, and you tie up part here, right? Even if they were all a little shorter, like the first couple or like the first episodes, especially with their lineup. When does Loki come out?
I think in June
11th, right? June 11th.
That's far.
Oh, I'm looking at May. Okay, so look at exactly. We could have had 2 more episodes, right? So the 23rd is when the last episode came out. We could have the 30th and the 7th, and then you still have a good break until June, right? So why didn't we have that? Like, and my thing is, I'm assuming it's just they didn't have money, but maybe I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way they wrote it, but like everything felt so, gotta get it in, gotta get it done. The Carly thing, it felt quick. Felt like, oh, we need to wrap up her story. Bam, shot her. Man. The Kirkland Cap, it just kind of felt rushed of like, is he gonna choose good or bad? And he chooses good. Oh, and then with with Bucky's end story, which, if anything, he's had more of a story arc so far than Sam, and you're just gonna let it fall flat at this moment. And by more of a story arc, I mean throughout the shows and everything,
Throughout the
the
MCU.
movies. Yeah, throughout the movies and now the show. Like, you're just gonna be like, and he tells the guy. Guy's
and
confused and Bucky's crying.
and in terms of would this be production? Maybe not. But in terms of storytelling, what you're talking about right here is the issue of pacing. Pacing out a show is a difficult thing. However, I heard this on another podcast, might have been The Watch, talking about the leading up to a season finale with these types of shows, especially with like a superhero show. What you expect is like a ramp up episode before the finale in order to get things going and set things up for the finale. Did you feel like that the show needed that? Because I feel like it did. I remember being like, there's a lot to cover here, and I feel like we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of put a brick on the gas pedal in that final episode, and not in the best way.
Yeah, and that's why I think it may have been a budget thing, because it's like
it might have been
like
a lot of actors and a lot of special effects.
I wonder how many episodes Loki's gonna have. I wonder if that's information yet.
Look that up while I talk about my next thing. So we talked about Sharon Carter being the power broker. So we don't have to get any further. Do you have any other thoughts on that, or are you good on it?
I mean, it's just we all have the same thoughts, of course.
Yeah.
if this caught you by surprise, sorry. I don't know what you were watching, but I don't know if it was this show.
Yeah.
It kind of was obvious this whole time. And then it brings up the question of how people didn't refer to her as such when she was, running around Madripoor. Because the power broker is supposed to be so known. It's just, that's a little couple. There's some holes there.
And my next one though is something that I don't really count as a negative per se, especially because this was more so caused by the pandemic. The reveal of Valentina Allegra de Fontaine was not supposed to be as, well, who's this, as it wound up being. Because she was supposed to be introduced in, spoiler warning, I guess, maybe, in Black Widow, which hasn't premiered yet, of course. So we were supposed to know who this character was by the time the show came out. So her kind of showing up and being like, you can call me Val. I was like, well, Val, I don't know who you are still. So that doesn't help me. What's happening right now? So that's where I kind of was with that character. I didn't, I'm looking forward to seeing what she is going to become because I like the actress, number one. And number two, I'm intrigued that she has a relationship with the U.S. agent now. But it was unfortunate that her appearance in the show felt kind of like, all right, I got to go do some Googles real quick to see who this is. Did you have any other feelings on her? You expect that you were excited about her before, but is that all for you?
No, I'm excited to see what she could become. I think she could be a very fun evil person, where almost like Superman's bald guy. What's his name?
Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor, where it's not necessarily him.
Superman's bald guy. God dang it!
I blank. Okay, my brain doesn't work great all the time.
Oh my god! The freaking Jeff Bezos. Before Jeff Bezos was born. Is that his name? Jeff Bezos? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I like him in a sense. I know he does some of his own bad deeds himself, but like a lot of times he'll hire people or work through people to have them. And I think that's kind of what she could be too. She's doing things in her own interest. But she's using pawns, right? Maybe she'll get some more pawns. And I think that's fun. That could be a fun baddie. Because technically she's not doing the bad thing, right? So that could be very interesting.
And John, with that concludes my negatives. Before we get into our favorites from this season, do you have anything else you want to say that's a negative?
No, I think we pretty much hit all the nails on the head. Um, but yeah, that's about it. I think we're done. Bashing Joe a little bit here.
Yeah, and we like to be, or I should speak for myself. I like to be positive in all the content that I create, and I'm pretty sure John does as well.
Yes.
So to end off, we're going to talk about some of our favorites from this
Hmm.
season. Why don't we start off with our favorite battle? Would you like to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Um,
Actually, I want you to go first. I want you to
my
go
favorite
first.
my favorite battle. I'm not gonna lie, is when Sam Wilson was able to use the shield and the wings, um, within his new suit.
So the first like 20 minutes of the season finale then.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. I thought it was great that and as I said earlier, it's going to be fun seeing him piece that equipment together because it's equipment we haven't really seen pieced together yet. So it's going to be awesome. Like the fact that like he used the shield and the wings to block and a helicopter bounced off the top. I was like, "Oh, that's sick. That's crazy that he's able to do that." Um so I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see more of that type of fighting and choreography within it.
So, uh excellent choice. For me, my favorite battle was Bucky and Sam versus Kirkland Cap,
Mm.
aka John Walker, aka US Agent, whatever you want to call him. The scene in which they break his arm to get the
It
shield off him
it felt
is
reminiscent to them trying to take the glove off of Thanos. So I
it,
agree there.
oh,
It was a good like
really,
callback. Yeah.
really cool comp. I never thought of that.
Hmm.
I thought it was awesome. And I will admit, I do wish it wasn't inside of like a dark warehouse. I think that it would have been really cool to see that out in like
Public
a field
maybe.
somewhere,
Yeah.
something really well lit, or maybe even in public. That would have been really cool.
Yeah.
People like filming it and stuff. But either way, I thought it was really cool, really well done. A small runner up, which you might think is a weird choice. I thought the fights in the freight yard in episode 3,
Mm.
towards the end of that episode, when they were very hand to hand John Wick style, I thought they
Yeah.
were super fun. Sharon Carter killing people outright,
Oh,
which
bro,
was the first sign.
she burnt someone's face off. That guy died. His skin melted.
Died horribly.
And she just said it like no big deal. And no one challenged her.
Mm-hmm.
Like she told who? Sam, I think? And
I think so.
nothing, and he was just like, "Ah, oh, I guess that's okay."
So those are my favorite battles. Up next,
Pause real
let's
quick.
talk.
I
Go ahead.
remembered something for positive and negative, and this covers both. The
Interesting.
suit.
We didn't talk about the suit. You're
We didn't
right.
talk about the suit. Positive, neck down. Negative, neck up. Why does he have to have a mask on? Look, I don't get masks all the time unless you're trying to hide your identity. Why do we need to have a mask, right? I like Cap better without his mask. I like Sam better without his mask. They got good looking faces. They're lead actors, okay? They're pretty men to look at. Let me see their heads.
Now, I will say this. I understand Sam needing goggles because he flies and bugs
Yes.
will get in there.
Yes.
However, the headpiece in general, you are 100% correct. We talked about this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The headpiece looked terrible.
Yeah.
It just did. It was not
And
fitted proproperly, maybe due to
literally,
COVID.
literally before this, I don't know if it was sent to one of our groups or if I saw it online, but his ears, like his ears were just popping out. And it's like, what? Why? Who designed that? Like, why is his just ears? And like, it looks weird because the suit's super white, and then I don't know, surprise, he's a black man, and he has these black ears sticking out, and it just looks like it doesn't flow. It doesn't flow, right? Like, it doesn't. It's just pops out, and it's like, what is going on here? Who decided this? And
I
like you
don't know.
said, it doesn't fit his eyes. What's
Yeah,
happening?
it just looked weird. Now, with that being said, the look of the suit,
Amazing!
cool.
I was
Very
so excited. I would like it. The whole like from neck down looks so freaking cool,
I love
and
the color
it's
scheme.
awesome
All of it.
because it feels Cap, but it doesn't once again feel like it's stepping on toes of the other suit or anything like that. It feels like his own. A lot of fun, especially because like, and it felt like it was a little beefier, like armor wise, because like, hey, he's not a superhuman, like so we.
So here's where I'm at with that. I think what could be enhanced for the next film, or because I think they said there's probably going to be the next portion of the story is going to be a movie.
Mm-hmm.
What I would like to see from this suit, keep the same color scheme, but when you mentioned like beefy with armor, I want it to be more pronounced that it is armor.
Mm.
I
Like
think
almost like Iron Man tech type.
a little bitty, or even kind of like a Black Panther suit where you could tell it's all tech,
Yeah.
but with the same color scheme,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Because I think that if you either keep the bulk but make it seem more armory, or you streamline it to get rid of some of the puffiness in specific areas, I think people will have less to complain about, because the suit was seen as like a 50-50 thing in the Twitterverse, which I don't even, it is what it is. Online fandom, everything's 50-50 nowadays. But yeah, we can both agree though the wings much cooler in this version than they were in the Falcon suit.
Yeah.
And they weren't even bad in the Falcon suit. I just think they look cooler now.
It just it looks sick. I mean, the whole design was like, man, I like this. I like this a lot.
And you know what? This suit is better than the cap suit in Avengers 1, for sure, in my opinion. And in Captain America: The First Avenger, the suit was kind of cool because it looked like it was military-esque with some Captain America stuff, so it was like kind of cool. So it's a decent cap suit.
Oh, so I'm seeing pictures online too of where it's just goggles and not like it doesn't connect here. And I think that
in the comics.
No, I don't know if these are renders or what, but I found a picture.
Can you send it to me?
Yeah. Send it to
That's
you in
interesting.
the Zoom thingy. I can't find copy link. Image address.
Very interesting. And I'm not entirely sure if maybe it's a...
I sent it on the Zoom chat.
Send it in the Zoom chat.
So
Checking now.
Click on it and bring it up.
Oh, yes, that's a fan render.
Okay, so those goggles, cool, right? Because it doesn't cover all of his head. I like that better than, and like you said, it makes sense for him to have goggles. And it also, goggles are a great idea. No one can poke you in your eyes. Can't get anything in your eyes. Eyes are weak. Human eyes are weak.
Small tangent. I always think about like, why don't more basketball players wear goggles? Because and I get that perception maybe while you're shooting, but eye pokes are so permanent, impossible. Why? Well, no, UFC fighters you kind of can't. If you get punched, but eye pokes are awful. People go blind. Yeah. But that's besides the point. So yeah, those are some thoughts on the suit. And I don't know if that was your favorite moment, him revealing the suit, but it wasn't mine.
No, that was one. I wouldn't say that was my favorite moment, but you go yours first.
My favorite moment was Isaiah Bradley getting his statue in the museum at the end of the season. To me, it felt almost like, let's talk about sports and sports entertainment for a second. I'm a wrestling fan. If you are not a wrestling fan, I'll try and describe a story with a TLDR, or too long didn't read, for those of you who are not internet savvy as John is. So in wrestling, sometimes there are these characters who are these legacy guys who fans are kind of like, this guy should have had a main event run. He should have had the world championship, and this character deserved to be on top at one point in his career. And they get behind him. And eventually that support with the right people gets this character to get this moment. Probably one of my 3 favorite moments in wrestling ever was WrestleMania 30 in 2014. Daniel Bryan, who was an independent wrestler all throughout the 2000s and the early 2010s, came over to WWE, finally got his moment to main event WrestleMania, and won the world championship. Freaking hugged a cancer patient child on the side of the at ringside, who was who Daniel Bryan was his idol. It was this incredible moment where real life kind of blended in with wrestling. It was awesome. And you're seeing someone who deserved the recognition and wasn't getting it because of the people in charge of him snuffing him out and not letting him get his moment. That's what it felt like with this. It was like, yes, finally, Isaiah gets the recognition he deserves. And to me, I found it very satisfying. And I thought it was a great cap off to his story, although cap off, Captain America bars. But I hope we get to see more from him in the future. Just saying.
Kyle's got this where he starts his nerd rapping career.
Yeah, right. And that's mine. What about you, John?
That was a great moment. I loved it for the feels that it brought. But I'm more sinister and dark. My favorite moment was when we got to watch Kirkland Cap smash some dude's skull in. It was such an epic moment of like hatred. Cause like in that moment I was like, oh, the shield, what are you tainting everything it stands for? Like I thought it was such a great moment of just like, like, is this happening the mouse is mad. But like, who let the mouse out of the house? And I was like, this is crazy. So that moment, it was something I was not expecting. So I think that's why it was just so like, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was wild. But then, I mean, for my favorite feels, that was the favorite feels. That was the thing, which is wild that gave me the most feels when the show wasn't even really about that. Which is interesting. I think that speaks to the show a little bit.
Well, and it speaks to how well that side story was told.
Yeah,
to be honest,
because like you'd think that maybe Sam getting the shield or something like that, or like feeling empowered by the shield, or the first time you see him as Captain America, you'd be like, man, that's a feels moment of like, I'm proud, I'm happy. And it's like, nah, it's like, shout out the guy who got snuffed, like who literally got written out of his life. Like he didn't exist anymore. He was technically dead. And now you got him his moment, and he'll live on forever because he deserves to. Yeah, that's a great feels moment. But yeah, I'm sinister, man.
And finally, to end off this pod, favorite character. We might have the same one. I want you to go first this time.
Batroc hero. No. Sam Wilson. Without a doubt, the character arc, how much he turns into Captain America in this show, right? I didn't necessarily feel like I felt like him. Does he necessarily deserve to be Captain America? Does he deserve to take up that mantle? And I'm like, I thought it was a good choice for them to choose to make him Cap. But at the end, he truly feels like he is Captain America with the way that he could eloquently speak on topics and do what Captain America has to do, take a stand for what he believes in. That's Captain America right there. I think it's the shining points of America, and that's what I really like about it.
Yeah, I think I think just his character arc into coming into his own, coming into, the interesting thing about Captain America is that it's a character who in the movies has a lot of responsibility, a lot. And in the show they discussed the difficulties of being a black person having to take up that mantle. Should he not? And having Sam Wilson make the tough choice and decide to, he says in the episode, he says, nobody's going to tell me I can't fight for the country that my people built. I think that it was a really, really well done story telling us why this person was picked by the writing crew, by Kevin Feige, by Steve Rogers, even to be the next Captain America. Because originally, back in like 2014, everyone was like, "Oh, well, what's going to happen?" Because people have been theory crafting with Marvel for freaking over a decade now. Mm-hmm. Everyone thought that Cap would die and Bucky would take up the shield, but I'm glad that they've gone the route that they did.
Oh, me too, and it feels right. He feels like the leading character, and Anthony Mackie, like I think, is a star in his own right with it. Yep. And I mean, it speaks to our time right now too. That's why it also works so perfectly. And I think it will, like, I mean, good on Disney, and maybe they're doing it as also like a marketing ploy to like, hey, we're progressive, but they got the balls to do so. So good for them. Actually doing something to help progress, because now, and I mean, obviously I'm a a white man, but I can only imagine like younger black kids have another superhero to look up to. And that's always awesome.
100%.
Representation.
And it's funny if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes reviews by fans.
Hmm.
There's some really, really bitter and foul words there, but you won't find those opinions here.
No.
We really liked the way that this went.
I have one more final question.
Good.
What do you think the rewatchability is of this?
Interesting point. Interesting question. I think that I don't know if someone's going to want to watch the entire season back. This might be a show where you go back to watch certain moments.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Because like my thing is, the reason I think I'd watch it back is, let's say we build to another big bad, big moment, almost Endgame-esque type situation. Now we have these little filler shows to fill in also. So I think leading up to that, you'd have to like, start with Spider-Man and then watch the shows and then watch the next movie, then watch. And I think in those moments, yeah, I'll watch it back. I'll probably end up watching it again with my girlfriend because I force her to watch all Marvel content, whether she likes it or not. But she likes it, so that's awesome. And so I'll watch it again then, and I'll have my opinion. Like I told Kyle, I thought WandaVision was a really fun second watch because you know what to expect, so you're not like I was doing and we were doing, probably theory crafting in a sense of like, oh, we're going to see this person, or, all that hype that was around things that may have not panned out. And you notice so many little Easter eggs that they put in there that you're like, you didn't notice the first time, which was so much fun because you experience it in live time. So I really enjoyed that. And I don't know if this will be something I enjoy as much as WandaVision's second watch, but we'll find out. So that, and then also, movie or show? What do you think it worked better? I think this worked better as a show. But
all right, you ready?
Yeah.
So it's the first time I'm going to disagree with you on this. I think this might have worked better as a movie. I think that, and here's why: the negatives that we had with it, if you strip them away, the runtime gets shorter, and maybe it could have been a movie. And look, I enjoy it as a show, but I wonder, I can't help but think maybe this would have been a really good movie. Maybe.
Yeah. And I think maybe we would have got some of the stuff cut out that we didn't like with like the Cap doing the silliness. Maybe that would have been cut out. Or Kirkland Cap, sorry. Doing his silliness. Things like that I think would have been better. And, maybe he wouldn't even get to redeem himself in this movie. Maybe it would have just, one of the ending credit scenes of the movie would have been him crafting his shield. Yep. And that could have turned out actually better in a sense.
So, just throwing it out there, and let us know your thoughts, any listeners out there, whether you think this would have been a better show, or what do you think this would have been better as a movie than it was a show. But with that being said, we both still did enjoy this show.
Yeah. And once again, I still think Marvel, hit again. They're still doing a very good job of creating their content. I appreciate the fact that they are turning comic book content into viable shows and viable movies that aren't just comic booky movies like old school comic booky movies were.
And we'll be back with the Marvel stuff with Loki.
Yes.
The next pod you'll hear from us will be a pod on the Circle. This recording was like the recording from hell. I don't know if it picked up on microphone, but I apparently live next to a club. People driving by with the loudest music I've ever heard in my life. They must be going insane with how loud it is in their cars, but they don't care.
It's just because we're old now, Kyle.
No, it's not. We're rational. The recording stopped a couple times. It just, wow. But we made it through, John. I think this was a pretty decent pod. And if you're watching this on YouTube, do us a favor. Leave the video a like.
Yes.
Subscribe to John on his YouTube channel. And do us a favor. Help out with the algorithm. Leave some thoughts in the comment section down below.
Yes.
That's very important. I'm realizing now.
We love a good conversation. That's another thing is, I mean, these are our thoughts, and obviously Kyle and I differ on thoughts. You may differ with thoughts on us too, and trust us, we're here to open it. We're open to hear it. And we like to talk. So you might change our minds on certain things. We might change your minds on certain things. So yeah, let's have a conversation. Drop those comments down below, even if it's like, hey, um, I like your picture in the background. Whatever it is, you know? Just let us know, and yeah, thanks for watching. And hey guys, if you have any friends who are also sweaties, maybe they're closeted sweaties, you know, all you have to do is send a link. Like,
You've all
hey,
been there.
check these guys out. You might enjoy them. Or if you have other shows that you're interested in, we do a wide variety of shows on this podcast, from horror with Haunting a Hill House, things like that. Reality shows, we got them Jersey Shore haters. So yeah, and that's another thing I'm super excited for. We got a lot coming up, Kyle, with reality TV and things like that. We're getting some variety, but also some more Marvel. So we'll see you Marvel nerds back when Loki comes out. But until then, stay sweaty, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.
Whoa, wait, real quick.
Oh, socials. Jesus.
Where can people watch you live playing video games, John?
I take it all back, not peace.
Do you not want people to come see you?
This is my first rodeo. You know, however many episodes in we are, over a year, this is apparently my first time doing this today. Like we said, recording from hell. Ginger Girl Gaming, which you can now see above my head on Twitch, because, you know, Kyle and I tweet sometimes, but we'll be found here more often. So if you like watching video games, or if you just want to talk, Ginger Girl Gaming, stop on by. It's mostly me and my friends just, you know, laughing at how stupid we could be, talking about things that we enjoy, and trying to have some conversations. My favorite
and getting our butts blasted on Fortnite daily now.
Boom. Yeah. It's crazy. We're bad. We're old and we're bad. Our reaction time's slow. But Ginger Girl Gaming, if you search that on basically any platform, look for my logo. You'll find it. And yeah, Kyle, where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/geeksweekly for my mostly movie reviews. I will be doing like a review of this show, but you've heard all my thoughts on here. But if you could, check out that video and leave it a like. Again, help out the algo. Type a little comment on there. That'd be pretty sick. And if you want to follow me on socials, which I'm posting on less and less as I get older, and focusing more and more on the content stuff, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at BuffCharmander. Or if you type in Kyle Claus, you will find me there as well. So, and yeah, that's where you can find me. And now, John, send us home.
Thank you, everyone, for watching, and peace out, everybody.